This is the Dreamers Podcast, where dreamers share their stories to inspire you. Now, join host Joe Pardo as he interviews a dreamer who's living their dreams.
Welcome to the Dreamers Podcast. I'm your host, Joe Pardo, and today I am interviewing Paul Dariano, who is living his dream through higher education. Welcome to the show, Paul.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome, Paul.
It's great to be here.
It is wonderful to be here, isn't it?
Indeed.
Live and in the studio.
Mm-hmm.
Let's start by giving a brief background about yourself.
Well, I'm 28. Grew up in South Jersey, right outside of Philadelphia. Graduated with a bachelor's from Rowan University in 2009, and then received my master's degree from the Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine in 2012.
What would you say inspires you to go deeper into education?
Honestly, I like learning, which is a complete contrast to how I was in high school, where you could barely get me to crack open a book. It wasn't until I got to college that I actually really enjoyed being there, and I enjoyed learning the subjects I was learning, and it just keeps me going every day just to keep learning new things, and as time goes on, new techniques are developed, so it's never ending. So,
how did your dream about higher education come about?
Well, just seeing how my family works, and just seeing none of them really went to college. My dad was a carpenter, my mom did, she actually still is in school, she did like medical transcription, which is doctor typing, like notes and stuff like that. Most of my family's blue collar, all construction, plumbers, electricians, I mean, you name it. So, I mean, just the idea of just having a better education, having those types of degrees to open up more doors to more job possibilities are really why I kind of went the route I did.
Well, with that said, how would you say that it was received by your family members that you were going to pursue a higher education?
It was expected. They really wanted me to go to school. I worked with my dad as more of like a warning or like a punishment growing up, as just, you know, this is what you could be doing for the rest of your life, as opposed to being in air conditioning, as opposed to just having it easy. You could be, you know, very stressed. Not saying that construction is bad. Like, I enjoy doing it. I mean, I've done it since I was a kid, but it really isn't something that I want to wake up and do every single day. I would prefer to use the education that I'm getting and, you know, just these different jobs that interest me. You know, my undergrad's in psychology, you know, I found that really fascinating. But each step along the way has kind of turned my interest towards something else. So it started in psychology, but then I did a class on the skeleton, and that got me into anthropology. And then from there, that got me into forensics, which is kind of where I'm at now. So, you know, just kind of a stepping stone along the way to get me to the point where I'm at now.
So what steps did you take to get started with a higher education?
I mean, it's unique. I mean, most people, like, in high school, they go to their guidance counselors, you know, they'll, you know, discuss with their GPA and stuff like that where they're going to go. Like I said, like, I really didn't try all that much in high school. So I honestly, I mean, we go back in time, you know, 10, 11 years, and you ask me the same question, I'd probably laugh and be like, I'm not going to school. Like, there's no point in me going to school. So I didn't do the whole, you know, I never took the SATs. I never took the ACT. Which is unique in a sense. My counselors, I mean, we discussed it, and we never pushed me to like apply to like a Rutgers or a Penn State or Salisbury or Stockton, like none of those. I never even thought of Rowan. I think I had some sort of like academic scholarship, so they were like, well, you might as well just go to like a 2-year school, go to Gloucester County, and I was like, okay, whatever. You know, and I applied senior year and got in like in a month and was like, all right, I'm here. And then I spent my first semester sleeping through it because I thought it was going to be a joke. Like, I didn't even think I would last. I didn't even think I was going to graduate. Like, I thought I'd be kicked out within the first semester. Made it to the second semester by the skin of my teeth and was like, all right, why am I here? It wasn't until one of my professors got really mad because the way he described it is like my intelligence would shine through. I'm not trying to say like I'm the smartest human alive, but, you know, I'm not the dumbest either. And he got really mad because he's like, you know, you have potential, yet you just sit around and don't do a thing about it. He's like, you would rather work, you know, 2-3 jobs making $10 an hour when you can actually, you know, put that head to good use. And he was like, humor me and quit and actually try to you know, see what happens, see if you'll actually like it. And if you don't like it, then fine, go back to working as a carpenter or in a video store, or, you know, be a food vendor. I've done everything. So I quit everything, and for that semester, I tried, and I pulled my GPA up from like I was on academic suspension. I think I had like a 1.9 or like it was something abysmal. Like it was right at the level where they're going to kick you out, and I managed to pull that up to a nearly a 3.0. And then by the time I graduated Rowan with a 3.2. And I mean, all things considering, with such a terrible GPA, I mean, that's quite a leap and bound to get back up to that point. But I mean, ever since then, after that semester, I just kind of hit the ground running. I was like, I want to learn more. I want to do more things. Like, it's a shame it took me all that time to realize that I actually was good at that, and that's something I enjoyed doing up until that point. But, you know, I've seen a lot, and I got to experience a lot through being in school, you know, achieving those degrees, going different places, having different interesting internships. So I definitely don't regret it, and I'm very happy, and I'm very glad that individual, you know, showed me what I would have been missing out on had I just kind of coasted through until the train stopped.
You touched on some of the jobs that you've done. I know you personally, and I know that there's an endless list of jobs. Could you list some of them for us?
Do you want me to talk about the ones before college or after college? Or
well, you've had so many. I mean, just go through and like list them off as many as you can. I'm sure people would love to hear.
I've been carpenter, done some like electrical work, plumbing work. I'm not very good at it. I worked on a ranch. I worked in a flower shop. I was an ice cream scooper. I was a cook, a server. Worked in a movie store, a video game store. I sold televisions. Was an auto mechanic. I worked at an oil refinery doing construction work for them. I worked as a tutor, a paraprofessional. It's like a teacher, but not really a teacher. It's like a teacher's aide, but that's not PC enough these days anymore, I guess. Oh man, what else? Where else have I worked? I mean, that's kind of the stuff I did before high school. Oh, I was a vendor for Keebler Kellogg's. I did that for a summer. That was weird. I got a lot of free food out of it though. And then during college, I worked at a bookstore. Had my one of my internships. I worked with the Philadelphia Medical Examiner's Office, doing investigative work for them. And then my most recent job, I was doing government contract work in the forensic sector, doing latent fingerprint work for them. So there's probably a few more that I don't remember. I shouldn't leave high school, graduate, wake up and said, well, I'm going to be the best fry cook at McDonald's they've ever had, and that's where it ends. I was like, there's always something more, there's always something better. So I never wanted to get comfortable in those jobs. So learning now, like, that's not the best thing in the world to do. It doesn't look very good. But I never wanted to get comfortable in a sense that I would be there for 3-4 years. So every so many months, I'd be like, okay, it's time to go. Usually, I'd last about a year. Some jobs I'd hold in tandem with other jobs because it's all part-time work. Once I got to the year point with those types of things, I never really wanted to move on because I'd come back to some jobs I used to have and some places, and I still see some of the same faces. Some people still, you know, working there. And I'm not saying, like, you know, that's a terrible thing, like, you know, to each his own. And, you know, if that's, you know, you can make good money in some of those jobs, you know, and that's perfectly fine, but that's not where I wanted to end up. So I never wanted to get to that point where choosing to move forward wouldn't be, you know, a thought. Like, I didn't want to get too comfortable to where I would get lazy and not want to keep pursuing or keep trying.
That's an awful lot of jobs.
Yeah.
So were there any roadblocks going through? You mentioned that you had a really low GPA and you didn't really care when you first got out before you got out of school, and then after you got out of high school and into college. Was there any roadblocks, say, during that process, whether it was transferring from another school? What would you say some of your biggest roadblocks are that maybe would help somebody else go into the same problems?
I mean, like, if you're in the same boat, being on academic suspension is not, obviously, I mean, for many reasons, it's not a very good thing. But as far as moving forward while on academic suspension, that kind of stops. So a institution or a school that should have taken me 2 years to complete took me slightly longer, because I had to go back and I had to fix the classes that I had messed up, retake a lot of stuff, actually pay attention, actually do well. Some of those subjects, I mean, even aren't my strongest to begin with. So it was a struggle to just kind of complete those classes and actually pay attention enough to want to complete them, to move on to the things I was really interested in. Once I got through that, I mean, financial aid stuff, my biggest thing is you know, making sure that you actually get a degree in, you know, an area you're going to be interested in wanting to work in. My undergrad's in psychology. Psychology, while interests me, isn't something that I want to pursue. You know, I realized that senior year of college. I mean, my biggest advice is if somebody is taking a business class, you know, maybe take an internship in the sector that you want to be in. You want to do trades, maybe see if you can find a way to, like, work with somebody who does like stocks or something like that. If you go to school for education. Maybe see if you can shadow a teacher for a day as early on as you can. At Rowan, they had us do our internships senior year last semester. I only had 2 classes left, and I went to my internship, and I sat down, and I left one day, and I came to the realization, like, I don't want to be a therapist. I don't want to do it. And like it hit me as panic. So I'm like, I just spent 3.5 years in school for a degree that I really don't intend on using. But with that being said, I mean, I use it more as a gateway now to get to other education and get to other areas that am interested in, as opposed to going back. I mean, you can go back for a second bachelor's, but I was able to get into a master's program for forensics that I really liked because I had a bachelor's already. And then through some other testing that they had to do, because it wasn't a science-based background, I was still able to get into that program. I was still able to excel very well. And I did enjoy the job that came out with it. But with any contract work, once the contract's done, the job is done. So it's, waiting for the next job. So I'm now in a position where I don't want to wait for that. So I'm going to go back again and actually choose a career path that I really enjoyed. While I was in PCOM, I really enjoyed the medical field. I enjoyed those aspects of my classes. And when I'm complete that within the next 11 months, I'll be working in a doctor's office, a hospital, in a capacity, whether it be physician's assistant or nursing. As far as roadblocks go, I mean, they're far and few. I really didn't have that many once I got out of Gloucester County. And once I moved on, I mean, I just kind of hit the ground running once I figured out that this is what I wanted to do. And then it just kind of, everything fell into place. And even though, like I said, the panic feeling, like I just wasted this much time, I really didn't. I took it, and then once I had another professor steer me in a direction that more interested me, I was like, well, I can take what I already have, and I can use it moving forward. I don't have to go backwards and fix quote-unquote mistakes. I can just take what I already have and move forward and move into an area that really enjoys me, or I'm interested in, not enjoys me.
So is there any parts of your dream that haven't quite worked out? Contract
work. I really enjoyed fingerprinting. It's a shame that it was a limited time. Even I knew that going into it, that it wasn't going to last forever. So when the day finally came that, my time there was done, it was a little bittersweet, because I just wish it was more a stable work economy, I guess. Other than that, no, I don't regret anything. I really enjoyed the path I've taken. It's been a fun adventure. A lot of fun stories have come out of it. And I mean, just experiences that I wouldn't have gotten, just following in line and just, picking up a hammer and going straight to work.
If you were stranded on a deserted island with your family, what are 3 things that you couldn't live without?
I like reading, so I think carting my library around would be awful. So I'd have to say, if my Kindle could last forever, I'd probably bring my Kindle, probably a deck of cards. It's gonna be really boring. If the island had the ability to grow coffee beans, if they had trees, I would probably bring a coffee pot.
You could have just said endless coffee mug or a bottomless coffee mug.
I guess it's the same thing. Although it'd be a little bit more.
Like
well, it'd be a little bit more fun actually to chop the beans down and somehow manage to roast them, and then manage to grind them, and then brew them. So I mean, I don't know. We can go with the coffee pot. It's a lot less mechanics involved.
So what would you say your dreams for the future are like?
I guess my dream for the future, I mean, just to go back to school and just to finish out, pick a field that's going to be a little more stable as far as work goes, and one where I can finally start to, settle down and actually try to make a career out of it, as opposed to jumping from place to place, from job to job. I mean, in my forensics field, I mean, that's kind of what the future would have held for me, and it wasn't one that I really would have enjoyed, 10, 15 years down the road, jumping from lab to lab, unit to unit, office to office every 2 to 5 years. It just isn't, moving isn't something that I wanted to do constantly, and that just seemed like that was going to be, if I wanted to keep pursuing it, that was going to keep happening. So pick a field that is going to be a little more stable, and one that I'm very interested in, and, go from there, and hopefully that'll be it.
So do you have any last thoughts to share with the audience?
What I would recommend, and if I could go back, I would probably suggest this for anybody, instead of going straight into college right out of high school. If you're having difficulty choosing a path, or you're unsure of, what you want to be, I guess, when you grow up, I wouldn't jump into it right away. Probably the first thing I would tell myself is I would probably experience first and find something that I'm actually truly interested in, and then pursue that head on, as opposed to figuring out over the course of 4 years what interests me. And then hoping that I figure that out before it's too late, or before, that time is done. Because you never want to try to redo it, or if you never really want to go beyond a bachelor's, or go back for a second, or move on to a master's, you never want to get to the end and be like, well, this isn't what I had in mind. And then you're there for 2 years, or 2 years more, or, you're stuck doing something that you're gonna hate for the rest of your life. Like I'd rather take a year or two and actually be like, this is my passion, this is what I want to do. I had a friend who's now 30. He just got his bachelor's in forensics because he took his 20s off to figure out what he wanted out of life, and he realized that this was something that he had a true passion for. You know, he went back to school, you know, in his late 20s. So I would recommend that. Is if I wouldn't jump into it blindly. I would go in with a clear plan, and if you don't have a clear plan, I would take the time to figure that out before you try it.
Thank you so much for being on the show, Paul. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of the Dreamers Podcast. Follow us on Twitter at Dreamers Podcast. Join us on Facebook at facebook.com/Dreamers Podcast. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the Dreamers Podcast, please send an email to j@jpar.co. This podcast is copyright 2014 by jpar.co.
Have you ever wanted to share something with someone just because?
Well, we do, a lot. So we started a podcast about, well, whatever we want. My name is Joyce.
And I'm her lovely husband, Al. Well, you know what I mean.
Hey, it's me, Al. Listen, I'm hijacking the Just Because podcast to start a new series all about the wonderful world of voice acting. Each episode, I'll have a professional voice actor on and ask them some serious, hard-hitting questions to get to the bottom of this world. If you've ever wanted to know about the inner workings of this magical and mystical business, tune into Just Because, inside the voiceover studio. Tune in at justbecausepodcast.com and on iTunes.
Hey, you like Walt Disney World? You like insider tips and tricks? Well, what if I told you where you can get the two together? Head on over to WaltDisneyInsider.com for the latest news and tips from Walt Disney World. And tell them Joe Pardo sent you.